everyone, I'm Rico Felice with Rockford Fosgate. This year we've done some really cool and innovative things with RZR-specific audio kits. So what I want to do is take you inside, take a look at what comes in these kits, and then we're going to see how they all go together. Hey everyone, I am here with Lee Teeples from RTTI, and we are going to walk you through the RZR-STAGE2 installation. Now, Lee, give us a little feedback on what this install is going to entail.
So on stage 2, we have our PMX2 radio. We're going to connect that to a pair of speakers and our RZR specific pods. So in the video, we're going to show you how to disassemble the RZR, mount all the gear, run the wires, and reassemble the vehicle.
All right, cool. Well, let's get started.
So before we get started, the first thing I'd like to do is disconnect the battery. Since we're going to be running new wires and disconnecting and reconnecting some of the plugs in the vehicle, it's always a safe thing to start there. So if you have a 2-seat RZR, the battery is going to be located underneath the driver's seat. If you have a 4-seat RZR, the battery is going to be underneath the rear left seat. So these seats are super easy to take out, so let me show you. So to remove the seat, there's a latch on the back side of it. You're going to lift up on that, pull the seat forward, and then lift up. Okay, so using a 13mm wrench, we're going to disconnect the negative battery terminal.
So the next step in the process is to actually start the disassembly of the dash. First step of that process is to remove the hood. Simply lift up, rotate the catches, and lift it off.
So next we're going to take these 2 screws off here. This is going to hold this top dash piece on the vehicle. Now that we've removed the screws, we're just going to simply pop this panel out of place. And then we're going to have access to these plugs on the back side that we're going to take off. On a couple of them, you may need a small flathead screwdriver to help.
So now that the gauge cluster is removed, the next thing to do is remove the storage pocket. To do this, we need to remove the retaining screw at the back of the pocket.
And this is the same screw that uses a T40 as the other dash piece. And now that screw is removed, you can simply pull this pocket out of the hole.
All right, so now that we have the pocket out, the next step is to remove the grab bar and the rest of the dash assembly. All right, so to remove the grab bar, simply disengage the retaining pin and remove it, and then we're going to pull the grab bar straight out of the dash. Next, to remove the dash assembly, we need to remove 2 retaining screws using a T40 Torx screwdriver.
So now that these screws are removed, we're going to pop the dash piece out. We'll put the steering wheel back down. It just pops out of place.
All right, Lee, now that we've got the dash out, what's the next step?
Well, let's get the rest of these seats out of the way and then we can remove the center console.
Okay.
Okay, now we're going to remove the console. Since this is a 4-seater, it has a front and rear console. To remove these, there's a couple more T40 bolts, and then there's some of these plastic clips, and we'll show you how to take those out. It's actually a 2-piece, so you remove the center pin, and then once the center pin's removed, the rest of it will pop right out. So once all the fasteners are removed, we're going to lift the console out. We're going to need to push these rubber boots through their holes in order to let the console go.
Lee, what's the next step in the install process?
So to get power and ground to the radio, it's going to go into under the hood compartment where there's these terminals that provide an accessory power and a ground terminal for us. So to get them there, there's this grommet that is in the firewall. We're going to remove that, and then it has some score lines on it that we're going to use a razor knife to cut so that the wire will pass through it. So we've reinstalled our cut grommet. Now we're going to feed the rear plugs and the power connectors through that grommet, and then we'll run the rear harness through the middle vehicle where we've removed the center console, and then we'll connect the power connectors to these terminal strip.
Okay, let's get that done.
Okay, so I want to explain this terminal block under the hood. There's 3 posts and they're labeled accessory, ground, and battery. Now you have to be aware that these terminals aren't anything unless they have a wire going to them. So on this one, the accessory one does have an accessory wire going to it, so we can use that to power the radio. The one labeled ground does not have a wire going to it, therefore we cannot put our ground wire there because it won't actually get ground. But the screw right next to that holds the battery terminal in place is an actual ground, and we can use that to power our radio. So it's important with this main harness that we run on top of these plastic loops that you see here. If it's under it, it's exposed to such things as a dry shaft. So it's just really important when you pull this through to make sure it stays on top of this. In the kit, we've included these wire ties that have a Christmas tree on the end. So those are going to push into the holes that are already in the vehicle, and it's going to keep the wire secure away from any moving parts. So if you notice, our wiring harness includes rear speakers, and we're going to go ahead and run them to the back. The reason why we did this is so we wanted to make the kits easy to add on to. So later, if you do decide to add rear speakers, you don't have to go through the entire disassembly process again. You can simply run the rear wires to this junction that we've included in the harness. To run our front speaker wires to the front speaker enclosures, the wires are going to pass through this tube that's built into the vehicle's frame. So we've included some plastic grommets to snap into the ends so that there's no chance of the wire ever being cut by the metal.
Alright, so now that we've got the speaker wire ran, we're ready to prep the pods and get those installed. Alright, so now we're ready to prep the speaker pod install. So Lee, what do we need to do to get these things ready?
Well, what I found makes the install of the speaker a lot easier is just before we go into the vehicle, is to get a 9/64 drill bit and drill out just the holes you're going to use for the speaker that you're mounting. So in our kit we have the M1 speaker. So you want to put that in place, line it up for the 4 holes that go with that speaker, and then you would use the drill bit to go all the way through. And that's going to make it a lot easier for you to hand tighten the screw in place.
Alright, so that preps the pods for our M1 speakers that come with the kit, but obviously the additional holes that are in the pod are for other model speakers.
Yep, so our M2 speaker has a slightly different bolt pattern, so we went ahead and put those holes in the pod as well, so if someone wants to use those, they're compatible with those.
Okay, alright, well at this point it looks like the pod prep's ready, so we're ready to move back to the vehicle and try and get these guys installed.
That's correct.
Alright, cool.
So our pods mount to 3 factory mounting locations. There's these 2 plastic bosses that we have a screw that will go into, and then we use this lower bolt of the frame here. So in order to do so, we're going to remove this bolt, and then we include this standoff that replaces that bolt. And on the end of the standoff, our 3rd mounting location here is for the pod. So now that our standoff's in place, we're going to feed our wire through the hole on the side of the pod. And then position the pod into place. We're going to be pulling the slack out of the wire as we're positioning the pod. So there's two types of screws included in the kit. One of them is a machine screw. That's going to go into the standoff. So now that the machine screw is in place, the other two locations use a coarser thread screw that's designed to go into the plastic. And once all three screws are started by hand, you can go then with an Allen wrench and tighten them. Now you can use a conventional Allen wrench. Inside here is kind of some weird angles, so I really like to use an Allen wrench that has a ball tip. Then I can get right in there and tighten the bolt up without any problem. So to seal up the hole for the wire, we've included a foam pad. Just apply it over the wire and the hole and make sure it's stuck on all the edges. Now we're ready to install our speaker into the pod. You're going to plug the terminals onto the back of the speaker. The silver wire is positive, the black wire is negative. And on the speaker, the larger terminal is positive and the smaller terminal is negative. We're going to position the speaker so that the holes line up and screw it in.
Alright, so now that we've got all the connections made, we're ready to go ahead and start reassembly by putting the dash back in. We're ready to start assembling the dash kit with the PMX2 radio. So Lee, what's the first step in this process that we need to do?
So we've designed our dash kit to basically replace this door. So we're going to take this door off and put our dash kit right back in its place.
Okay.
So a couple of steps we'll go through. We're going to pull these pins out. And that's taking that door off. Now this fits right back in its place. So we have a couple things we're going to do first though. So there's these knockouts on the back of this pocket, and you could take this out and get by running wires, but what I really like to do is just cut a larger hole. It really makes the install a lot easier. So we're going to take a 2-inch hole saw and we're just going to cut right in the back side of the pocket, and it's going to really make things a lot easier when we're putting the vehicle back together.
All right, so Lee, now that we've got the hole in the pocket's modified, what's the next step we need to go to?
So we're going to mount the radio to the kit. We've included the 4 screws and the Allen wrench that holds them in there in the kit.
Okay, so now we've got the head unit attached to the dash kit itself. What other steps are involved in finishing this?
So when we go to put the dash kit back onto the pocket, instead of using these plastic rods that held the door in place, we actually have a screw that's going to go through the dash kit, and then these are retaining clips that go onto the dash kit. So it's actually more of a solid install as opposed to just a snap fit.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, let's move on to the next step.
Let's go put it in the car.
All right. We're ready to go ahead and finish the install by putting the pocket and the radio in.
So now we're going to put all the wires going to the radio through the hole that we made in the back of the pocket. Then we're going to plug those connections into the radio. And now we're going to assemble the dash kit to the pocket. So now we're going to install the screws that hold the dash kit in place. And they have to go through several layers of plastic. So a trick I've learned to get them to align properly is to use a long skinny pick. And then you can feed that through the hole and it'll help align the clip, and then the screw will go right in.
All right, so now that we've got the radio installed and connected, the next step is to reconnect the battery, power it up, and make sure everything's working right. All right, guys, that pretty much wraps up this install. So Lee, thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to be able to help us out with this one.
Absolutely. So we put a lot of effort into these systems, so hopefully between our efforts and this video, you should find your install very simple.
All right, guys, and always remember, you can always check out rockfordfosgate.com for more information, or if you need additional assistance, contact our customer service line. They're always there, happy to help you out. So it pretty much wraps this up, so thanks again.
Sounds good.
All right, guys, we'll see you again in another video.